It was the year 1851. In the distant lands of Mississippi, there stretched a field where the cries of slaves echoed day and night. The cotton fields looked as white as snow, but beneath them lay layers of sweat and blood whose stench never faded. The sunlight there did not warm the earth, it burned the skin of the slaves. Among those cries was one voice that stood apart, the voice of Caleb. Caleb was not like the other slaves. His skin was not dark. He was an albino, white, yet enslaved. People said he was born cursed. The day he came into this world, his mother died, and the midwife who touched him lost her mind 3 days later. The other slaves feared him, whispering that his eyes hid the devil himself, and that his pale skin leaked wandering spirits. His master, Samuel Crawford, was one of the cruelest plantation owners in all of Mississippi. A tall, broad man with a heart filled not with blood, but with hate. To him, slaves were not people, they were beasts of burden. Each day he lashed them with his whip and roared, "Cotton must be white, whether it's from the fields or from your bones." Caleb worked silently from dawn to dusk. He endured the whip without a word, but his eyes always held a strange calm, the calm of the grave. Other slaves would whisper, "He's walking dead. There's no soul left in him." But none of them knew, the soul inside Caleb was hungrier than death itself. One night, when the moon was hidden behind clouds and the mist covered the fields, a faint song rose from the slaves' quarters. An old woman, once believed to be a witch, sat before Caleb and said, "Boy, you are different. You have what no one else has. If you wish, the debt of pain can be paid, but every debt demands blood, a lot of blood." Caleb's voice was quiet. "Is my blood not enough?" The woman stared deep into his red eyes and whispered, "No, only your master's blood can free your mother's soul." The next morning, the fields were wrapped in an eerie silence. Caleb picked cotton, his gaze often drifting toward Samuel. As the sun climbed higher, something began to stir within him, a strange boiling in his veins. Around noon, Samuel whipped a slave until blood sprayed into the air. A few drops landed on Caleb's cheek. He touched them with his fingers and, for the first time, smiled. That smile froze every heart nearby. Night came. The clouds swallowed the moon. The quarters were silent except for slow, fearful breathing. Caleb rose quietly, walked to the door, and stepped out into the cold, damp earth. The air carried the scent of old blood. He walked toward Samuel's house, an old wooden structure glowing faintly with oil lamps. Shadows moved strangely behind the windows. Samuel, drunk and cruel, sat in his chair. A rifle hung on the wall, a glass of whiskey on the table, and at his feet lay the body of a black slave he had killed that evening. Caleb placed his hand on the door, and it opened by itself. A gust of wind swept through, dimming the lights. Samuel squinted into the darkness. "Who's there?" he called. A deep voice answered, calm but heavy. "The one whose blood you drank, has come for yours." Samuel grabbed his gun. The lamp went out. Darkness swallowed the room. Then came a strange rustling, like cotton stalks swaying in the wind, but they were inside the room. A single shot rang out. Then, a scream, so sharp, so terrible, that even the slaves sleeping in the quarters awoke in terror. When the sun rose, they found Samuel's body in the cotton field. There was not a single wound on him, but his skin was chalk white, as if someone had drained every drop of blood. On his chest lay cotton flowers stained faintly with red, someone's blood. From that day on, Caleb was never seen again. Some said he fled. Others whispered that Samuel's spirit dragged him to hell. But the slaves believed something else, that when the wind moved through the cotton, you could still hear a whisper. Whiteness isn't just on the skin, it can live in the blood. After that, each harvest season brought new terror. Every year, a slave would be found dead, no wounds, face pale as snow, life drained away. People began to say, "Caleb isn't just a ghost now, he is justice. He drinks the blood of every man who brings pain to the innocent." Years later, a new master came to the land. He laughed at the tales. "I fear no ghosts," he said. "Only God." That night, as he sat under the dim light of his lamp, he felt eyes watching him through the window. He stepped outside, nothing but cotton flowers swaying in the breeze. Then the door behind him creaked shut. A whisper came, cold and close. "Your blood isn't white enough." The next morning, they found him dead. His skin, white as frost. In his stiff hand, a single cotton flower. The plantation was abandoned after that. Even today, in that forgotten corner of Mississippi, when fog settles over the fields, people claim to see a pale figure walking slowly among the cotton, white skin, red eyes, and silent footsteps. They say it's Caleb, still searching for justice. Once, a traveler left a recorder there overnight. When he played it back the next day, there was only one voice, faint, but clear. I am not free, not while blood still flows. The cotton fields of Mississippi now lay abandoned. Crops still grew, but no hands came to pick them. People said the land had sealed itself, as if it was sick of blood. When the wind blew, the white cotton flowers scattered through the air, carrying with them a faint whisper. I am not free, not while blood still flows. The villagers nearby would lower their eyes whenever they passed that land. A young worker named Eli, new to the area, laughed whenever he heard the stories. These are old folks' tales, he said. There are no such things as ghosts. But the old women would shiver when they saw him. One of them warned, Caleb's vengeance is not done, boy. If he hears pride in your voice, he'll dry your blood too. Eli brushed it off with a laugh. But that night, as he lay in bed, he heard faint rustling outside the window, like something moving between the cotton plants. There was no wind, yet the leaves trembled. He rose, lit his lantern, and stepped outside. The darkness was thick. Only the small circle of light showed the ground around him. Then, at the edge of the light, a pale shadow flickered. Eli widened his eyes, but it was gone. His heartbeat quickened, yet he stood his ground. Caleb, or whoever you are, he shouted, come out and face me. Only the wind answered, and with it, his lantern went out. Darkness swallowed everything. Then came the sound of footsteps, close, too close. Eli tried to run, but the ground held him still. And then, right beside his ear, a whisper. Cotton needs blood. His scream tore through the night. By morning, they found him in the field, his face white, his eyes open, and a cotton flower clenched in his hand. After that, the villagers swore never to go near those fields again. But one man dared, Father Alan Tharp, a preacher who believed he could end the curse. With the word of God, he said, no spirit can stand. He bought crosses with church money and organized a prayer gathering under candlelight. The descendants of slaves and old villagers came together that night. The preacher opened his Bible and spoke firmly. The devil does not dwell in the dark, he dwells in the heart. Tonight, we will end Caleb's torment. A gust of wind blew through. The candles flickered. The pages of the Bible turned on their own. Someone cried out, stop, you'll anger him. But the preacher didn't stop. Then the ground trembled slightly. Everyone looked down, something was moving beneath the soil. A crack opened, and from between the cotton stalks, a hand emerged, pale, shining, but smeared with blood. People screamed and fled, but the preacher stood firm, raising his cross. In the name of God, I command you, return to the earth. The wind stopped. Silence fell. Then came a deep, furious voice that rolled like thunder. God. Where was God, when my mother screamed? Where was he when flesh tore under the whip? The preacher staggered back. From the earth rose a full figure, human in shape, but wrong. Pale as death, eyes red as blood, voice echoing with rage. I am justice, it said. I am what you created. I am the blood you spilled. The preacher tried to cry out, but his voice died. An unseen hand gripped his throat. The church bells began to toll by themselves. Candles flared, and then went dark. The preacher's body fell to the ground. When they looked at him, his face was white as chalk. After that night, no one dared go near the fields. Yet sometimes, faint lights could be seen, as if a lantern still burned out there. And when someone approached, a voice rose from the ground. I no longer wake for vengeance, but for remembrance. A young woman named Hannah, whose grandfather had once been a slave, decided to face the fear. She wanted to set Caleb's spirit free. Carrying a small lantern, she stepped into the cotton fields. The air was utterly still. Softly, she said, Caleb, if you've done your justice, then rest now. You are forgiven. For a long time, there was silence. Then, from deep below, came a whisper. Rest. Not until the world remembers that freedom was bought with blood. Tears rolled down Hannah's cheeks. She placed the lantern on the ground. When she turned to leave, she saw a faint shadow standing among the cotton, still, silent. It didn't move, but when the light touched her shoulder, she felt warmth, as if someone had gently laid a hand there. The next morning, villagers found something strange, footprints, leading away from the field toward the forest. For the first time, it seemed Caleb had left the land. Some said he had finally begun his journey, away from the memories of slavery. But others, the old ones, still whispered, "Every time new blood is spilled, Caleb wakes again." And they say, in the darkest hour before dawn, when the moon fades and the cotton glistens with dew, a soft voice drifts through the mist. "I am not free, not while blood still flows." Time passed. Those Mississippi fields had become a chapter of history. New buildings rose over the old lands, but beneath their foundations lay the same soil that had once drunk the blood of slaves. The old generations were gone, yet the story survived, the story of Caleb's ghost. It was the summer of 1923. A white farmer named Jackson Howard bought the land where Samuel Crawford's cotton fields had once stood. The townsfolk warned him, "That place is cursed. People disappear from there." Jackson laughed, "I believe in hard work, not in ghosts." He moved into the old farmhouse with his wife Mary and their son Thomas. The house was still made of wood, but time had made it frail. The hinges creaked, and when the wind blew at night, the walls whispered like they remembered pain. On the first night, Mary dreamed that someone was standing outside the window, a pale figure, silent, staring. His eyes were red, but not with rage, with sorrow. When she told Jackson in the morning, he laughed, "Old houses have old shadows." Days passed. Jackson flattened the land and sowed cotton again. The first harvest was surprisingly good. The townsfolk murmured that maybe the ghost had finally gone to rest. But Mary's dreams grew darker. Sometimes she saw a man standing in the fields. Sometimes she felt someone breathing in their room at night. One night, she woke to find the door half open. A faint light flickered outside. She stepped out. The fields were covered in a thin fog. In the middle of the field, an old oil lamp was burning, the same kind that Hannah had once left behind, rusted but still alive with flame. Mary trembled as a voice rose from the mist. "I am not free, while blood remains." Her scream woke Jackson and Thomas. They ran outside, but the lamp was gone. Only a few burnt cotton blossoms lay on the ground. Mary's eyes were blank. She kept whispering, "He's back." The next morning, something strange appeared in the field. It had rained all night, yet the soil was dry, not just dry, but sticky, like it had absorbed something thick. Thomas said, "Daddy, the ground feels like blood." Jackson ignored it, but that night, he felt it too. The cotton plants were moving, but there was no wind. He grabbed his rifle and went out. The fog was thick. He could hear footsteps between the rows. Then a deep voice behind him said, "This land is mine." Jackson turned and fired, but the sound vanished into the soil, as if swallowed. And then he saw him, Caleb. Pale skin, red eyes, but a calm face. "I want no revenge," the ghost said. "Only truth." Jackson stammered, What truth?" Caleb's voice deepened, "You stand on blood-soaked ground. The cotton you plant grows from the bones of my people. Find their graves, and maybe I will rest." The next day, Jackson brought workers and began digging. In the center of the field, they found a pit full of bones, small ones, like children's, tangled with rusted chains. Mary cried. Thomas stood silent. Jackson said, "We'll bury them with honor." That night, they lit candles and prayed. When the sun rose, a soft voice whispered, "Thank you." For the first time, dew sparkled on the cotton, and the air smelled clean. Everyone thought it was over. But a week later, Thomas vanished. The house doors were open, and his footprints led toward the field. On the ground, drawn in the soil with a finger, were the words, "Blood does not stay silent." Mary went mad. She screamed in the town square, "He took my son. He doesn't want peace anymore, he wants revenge." They locked her in the church for her own safety. But that night, the church doors opened by themselves, and the bells began to ring. When morning came, Mary was gone. On the wall, written with cotton flowers, were the words, "I am not free, while blood remains." A few days later, Jackson abandoned the land. He disappeared from the town, but the story didn't end. 20 years later, a hunter found a small cabin near the woods. Inside sat an old man, frail and pale. On the wall, scratched into the wood, were the same words. It was Jackson. With his last breath, he whispered, "He's inside me now." When his body was burned, the smoke rose toward the cotton fields. And for years after, whenever it rained, the ground bled red water. The locals called it Caleb's blood. Time moved on, but in every generation, someone would dream of a pale figure standing in the mist, silent, watching, whispering the same haunting truth. Blood never sleeps. Time is a circle, and in a circle, nothing truly ends, it only changes form. It was the year 2023. The same land of Mississippi, but now a small town stood there. On the old grounds were schools, warehouses, and a museum, the Crawford Cotton Memorial Museum. People now saw slavery as history, a story trapped within books. But beneath the ground, something still breathed. The curator of the museum was a young woman named Ella, a university student researching the era of slavery. While going through old records, one name kept appearing again and again, Caleb Crawford. But strangely, his name wasn't listed among the slaves, it was written in the property ledger, not as an object, but as a mark of spirit. Ella was intrigued. She examined old photographs of the cotton fields. In one image, she saw a faint figure, pale, almost human in shape. When she zoomed in, the face blurred, but at the place where eyes should be, there was a deep red haze. That night, Ella stayed alone in the museum. Outside, a storm raged. The power went out, and darkness swallowed the building. She turned on her flashlight, and then heard it, a soft sound, like a door slowly closing somewhere in the dark. "Hello," she called out. No answer. Then she felt it, a touch on her shoulder. She spun around. No one. But one of the framed photos on the wall was shaking. When she moved closer, she saw fingerprints smeared on the glass, 5 of them, pressed from inside the frame. Suddenly, the old speaker system crackled to life on its own. From it came a low whisper. "I am not free, while blood remains." The floor trembled beneath her. Glass shattered. The emergency lights flickered wildly. Ella ran to the basement, the archive where the tools of slavery were kept, chains, whips, fragments of bone. The air was still, yet freezing. She raised her phone's light, and froze. A pale figure stood before her. Who are you?" she whispered. The figure stepped closer, light brushing his face, "Caleb." But he wasn't angry. His eyes burned red, yet full of exhaustion. "I don't want revenge," he said softly. "I just want to be remembered." Ella's voice shook. "I won't forget you. I'll write your story. I'll tell the world you were real." A faint calm washed over his ghostly face. "If you tell the truth, maybe I can rest. But remember, forgetting blood is the greatest sin." The chains around her began to rattle. A wooden cabinet toppled, revealing a hole in the wall. Inside lay a black chest. Hesitant, Ella opened it. Inside were dried cotton blossoms and a single human bone, etched with words carved by hand. "Freedom isn't free." A gust of cold wind blew out her lamp. Caleb's form began to fade. His voice echoed one last time. "Maybe now, I can sleep." And he was gone. Tears rolled down Ella's face. She carried the chest upstairs. By dawn, the storm had calmed. She placed the chest in the center of the museum and fixed a brass plaque beneath it. "This chest is dedicated to the souls who bled in the cotton fields. They still live, as long as we remember them." Visitors began to come. The museum became famous. But soon, something strange began to happen. Whenever someone stood near the chest, they heard a soft whisper. "I am not free, while blood remains." Some said it was just the wind. But one night, the night guard found the chest open. Inside, the cotton blossoms were fresh, as if someone had just placed them there. And ever since then, every year on August 9th, the same night Samuel Crawford died in 1851, a white mist covers the museum. Cameras shut down, lights flicker, and by morning, the chest is always closed again. Some say the spirit has finally found peace. Others believe it still seeks justice. And a few swear they've seen a pale figure in the mist, with glowing red eyes, walking toward the old cotton fields. He doesn't speak. He only leaves behind a single whisper in the air. Blood never sleeps. And far away, as dawn breaks, a church bell rings. As if a ghost is saying its final prayer. For real and terrifying stories, subscribe to our channel and don't forget to press the bell icon.